Now it's just past sunrise at our launch site, Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Air Force Base, a place where I worked years ago flying Titan IIIs. Now it's just a few hours up the coast from our headquarters here in Hawthorne, California. Now on the screen you can see the two-stage Falcon 9 vehicle on the pad. It stands 70 meters tall. That's over 21 stories in height. Now the first stage will provide the initial force to get Falcon 9 out of the majority of Earth's atmosphere. Now you can see in the first stage the soot. That indicates that this booster has flown before. It previously supported the Telstar 18 Vantage mission in September out of Cape Canaveral. So today will be the second flight of that first stage. Now about 2.5 minutes into flight, the first and second stages will separate. That happens right at the joint between that black part of the rocket and then the white second stage up at the very top. Once that happens, the first stage will be coming back. We're attempting to land the booster out at sea on our drone ship located about 250 kilometers downrange. Now from there, we'll follow the second stage as it takes the 10 Iridium NEXT satellites from the edge of space to their intended orbit. Now we'll see the first shutdown of the second stage. Then we're going to have a 43-minute coast phase before we relight the engine for a short burn, and that will then lead up to deployment of the Iridium satellites. Now those satellites are currently housed at the top of the rocket. You can see in the close-up the 17-foot diameter payload fairing with the Iridium NEXT 8 logo on it. Now for those of you who are wondering, there's no parachute on the fairing on this mission, so we won't be attempting fairing recovery this time around. But there still is a lot going on for this flight. Finally, the structure you can see, that truss structure next to the Falcon 9 rocket in white, that's the transporter erector. It carries the rocket from the hangar to the pad, and at about T-minus 15 hours, it raised it to the vertical position. That erector carries the plumbing and the electrical systems that are routed to the Falcon 9 and the Iridium satellites. Shortly before launch, at about T-minus 4 minutes, that erector will move 13 degrees away from the rocket. That's a little different than our East Coast launch pads that move away at liftoff. T-minus 10 minutes, 15 seconds, counting down. And as I like to report on the webcast, the good news is working, no issues on the rocket. Falcon 9, we began loading propellants at T-minus 35 minutes. Currently, the second stage fuel tank is fully loaded with RP1 kerosene. Fueling is still going on the first stage. That'll finish about 6 minutes before launch. Liquid oxygen loading is underway on both the first and the second stage right now. Now our next major activity coming up in just under 3 minutes is opening the valves between the first stage propellant tanks and the engines. That allows us to chill the turbo pumps prior to the ignition sequence that starts in the last couple of seconds of the countdown. On the customer side, the Iridium team has transferred to internal power at T-minus 15 minutes. They're reporting no issues. They're monitoring the satellites, but they are ready for launch at 31 minutes after the hour. Today we're operating out of Vandenberg and flying over the Western Range. We get similar support for our Eastern Range launches. Today the Air Force is giving us clearance of both the air and the sea space, and they are providing weather support, launching the balloons we need to understand what's happening at the upper altitudes. And speaking of the weather, we all talk about it, but we only can wait and watch what happens with it. Currently, the upper altitude looks good. We are watching ground winds at the lower altitude at the launch pad site. I've been looking at that on my telemetry plot. We had a peak a little bit earlier, but the winds seem to be dying down a bit. But we're going to be watching that, especially as we retract the erector about 4.5 minutes from now. But currently, the weather looks like it's cooperating. Now, in order to correctly position the satellites, the SpaceX team has to launch right on time. So therefore, today's launch window is instantaneous. If we delay for any reason, We do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at 7:25 a.m. Pacific time. As many of you remember from our previous webcast, Iridium operates a network of 66 satellites in low Earth orbit. Now, including today's flight, we will have sent up enough satellites to replace the original 66, plus an additional 9 in-orbit spares, for a total of 75 Iridium NEXT satellites. Now, in space, each Iridium NEXT satellite is cross-linked to 4 other satellites. That creates a dynamic mesh network that provides coverage over 100% of the Earth's surface. This network allows Iridium to deliver high-quality mobile voice and data coverage to the most remote edges of the planet, from the North and South Poles to the oceans and the airways. Iridium NEXT significantly enhances their ability to meet the growing demand for global mobile communications. Let's learn more about Iridium NEXT.
Life. It's about staying connected to your friends, your family, your business. Every generation has made their contribution to strengthening these connections. In the 1990s, the drive for truly global connections began with a vision that was as bold as it was audacious. The founders of Iridium set out to create a global network of satellites that would revolutionize communications, allowing people to connect to data, devices, and each other from anywhere on Earth. The first Iridium service launched in late 1998. Yet, like earlier communications, Iridium's original satellites needed refreshed to keep up with a growing and evolving demand. Iridium embarked on a $3 billion replacement of its global network. With a total of 66 operational satellites, this feat represented the largest technology refresh in history. Now, the countdown to Iridium's 8th and final launch begins. With this launch, Iridium will once again bring their initial bold and audacious vision to life. Because at Iridium, they know connections matter in every area of life, in ways we see and in ways we don't. That is the driving force behind Iridium, partnering with the best companies throughout the world to enable the most innovative services and solutions possible and imaginable. It is their unwavering commitment to creating the most powerful multi-service broadband platform, Iridium Certus, a massively robust, reliable global service enabled by Iridium's pole-to-pole coverage that will empower people with products that will make a difference in our lives today and create a better world for everyone for generations to come. In the air, on water, and on land. With Iridium, now everything is within reach.
T-minus 4 minutes, 10 seconds, and we are continuing to count down for an on-time launch. We're currently pressurizing the second stage. We are
Stage 2 LOX loads closed out. Falcon 9 is on internal power. Falcon 9 is in startup.
This is Launch Director. Falcon 9, go for launch. T-minus 15 seconds.
Vehicles configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff of Falcon 9. Iridium-8.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Stage 1 props nominal.
T plus 40 seconds and Falcon 9 is on its way with a countdown of the last 10 seconds by Iridium CEO Matt Desch. We're throttling down now in preparation for the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Vehicle supersonic.
RC on countdown 1, first motion time 15:31:33.492 UTC.
Calling out the time there of liftoff over the net.
Position of signal.
We're through the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Merlin engines continuing to perform at 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Falcon 9 heading out into the upper atmosphere. Nice view from the first stage camera looking aft. We're headed south from Vandenberg Air Force Base, Space Launch Complex 4 East.
MVAC engine chill.
The MVAC engine cheer call out indicates that we have now opened up the oxygen that goes to the pump on the second stage engine, chilling it down for ignition coming up about a minute from now. We're hearing good call outs. Propulsion looks nominal. The trajectory looks good. Now coming up will be rapid fire events. Main engine cutoff, we shut down the 9 Merlin 1D engines. At 2.5 minutes, we will separate the stages. We'll light the second stage engine, and at just a little bit after that, we'll relight 3 engines on the first stage to begin slowing it down for landing in the Pacific Ocean on our drone ship.
Stage separation confirmed. And back ignition.
Stage 1 has entered its flip.
So we've had successful shutdown of the first stage. It's separated. It's doing the flip to reorient, and it's lit its 3 engines to begin slowing it down to come to the drone ship. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side of the display, second stage engine has ignited, begin propelling the Iridium satellites. You can see them there as we get ready for fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
A lot of events happening. You saw the fairing separate, and you can see one half of the fairing drifting away behind the second stage on the right-hand side of the display. On the left side, we've had shutdown from the boost back burn, and you can see the titanium grid fins slowly extending. That's nominal for those grid fins. The white flashing you see, that is attitude control gas, nitrogen, that's used to orient the first stage. We're coming up 4 minutes into flight. In about a minute and a half, the first stage will initiate a quick re-entry burn to again slow the rocket down as it re-enters Earth's atmosphere. A minute later, we'll perform the final burn, the landing burn, which will decelerate the vehicle to a gentle landing atop our drone ship. Just read the instructions. Now, as a reminder, recovery is always a secondary objective to our primary goal of delivering our customers' satellites to orbit. Views you have right now, the camera on the left is looking up the inner stage where there used to be a second stage. Now we're looking at the grid fins with the Pacific Ocean in the background. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, the MVAC-D second stage engine running about 200,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space. You can see the nozzle glowing red hot. That's nominal for that nozzle. We're about half a minute away from the entry burn. This one will also be a 3-engine burn. That'll slow the vehicle down as we go to subsonic speeds, and then eventually a final burn a little bit after that to land on the drone ship. Getting excellent views as the sun has risen recently over the west coast here in the United States.
Stage 1 entry burn has started.
Call out the entry burn on stage 1 has started. 3 engines up and running.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And the entry burn shutdown called out over the countdown net, as you heard.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Everything continuing to look good. First stage entry burn has ended. We're less than a minute until the third and final landing burn, followed by touchdown on the drone ship. And you can see the first stage descending back down through the atmosphere as it's coming up on the cloud deck. Now, as a reminder, we may lose live video coverage on the drone ship as the engine exhaust degrades the radio frequency signal. Now, if that happens, we'll share status updates on the first stage as they become available.
Drone ship AOS.
Drone ship AOS means the drone ship has acquired
Stage
the
1
signal.
landing burn has started.
Center engine has lit. We're slowing ourselves down, preparing to find the drone ship right underneath us. You've got the camera view from the drone ship now. Waiting to see the first stage come into view. And we're getting the signal dropout, which is not unusual. We're going to keep pressing on. We have not heard confirmation.
Falcon 9 has landed. Landing operators moving to 11.1 high.
There you go. We heard the call out from recovery. Falcon 9 has landed. We hope to get a shot of it on the deck of the drone ship a little bit later, but we can confirm we're down with the first stage. We're pressing on the second stage mission. Currently, trajectory looks good. We've begun throttling down the Merlin vacuum engine, maintaining the G load on the Iridium NEXT satellites. And we've got the view back from the drone ship. There it is, right in the middle of the bullseye. The first stage is back again down on Earth. Meanwhile, second stage is getting ready in less than 20 seconds for shutdown and entry into the parking orbit.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Coming up on shutdown of the second stage engine, and we've had shutdown.
Evac shutdown.
Now we're going to wait for the guidance officer to give us a report on the orbit.
What's the signal, Hawthorne, as expected?
Looking up right now,
Nominal orbit insertion.
it sounds like we have a good orbit insertion. Looking at apogee, perigee, inclination, everything's looking good. So we're 9.5 minutes into flight. We've got a satisfactory parking orbit. We're now going to go into a coast phase. This is about a 43-minute period while we coast over to Africa, where we will then relight the upper stage engine and then eventually deploy the 10 Iridium NEXT satellites. So we're going to halt live commentary right now. Going to take a break. We'll be back, though, at T plus 50 minutes to continuing coverage of the Falcon 9 mission for Iridium 8.